Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this really exciting Q&A session hosted by Northumbria Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. My name's Tom. I'm a Placements Advisor in the Careers Service, and I'll let these guys introduce themselves in a moment. But today we're going to be hearing from the team about their NHS data and analytics placement, and you'll be hearing from the people that you would be working with, as well as Patrick, the current placement student there. So without further ado, I will pass over to our speakers.
Hello everybody, I am Jenny Pope and I'm the Deputy Analytics Manager at Northumbria Healthcare Information Services Department. Rob?
Hi, I'm Rob Vardy, I'm the Deputy Data Integration Manager. Patrick?
And I'm Patrick Parkinson, I'm the current placement student.
Okay, so we're going to start off with a little bit about the Trust. So we provide a range of health and care services to support more than 500,000 people living in Northumberland and North Tyneside. We have 9 hospital sites across Northumberland and North Tyneside, and that includes our specialist emergency care hospital at Cramlington, which opened in June 2015. We have 3 sort of general hospitals in North Tyneside, Wansbeck Hospital and Hexham Hospital, and then we've got a number of community sites as well, which are in more rural areas. We are one of the North East's largest employers, and this says we've got 12,000 dedicated members of staff. That's not a number I've checked recently, but we are a huge employer in Northumberland and North Tyneside, and actually the NHS is one of the largest employers in the world. And also we have recently been rated best of all hospital and combined hospital community trusts in the NHS National Staff Survey. We always do really, really well in the staff survey. We have been rated outstanding twice by the Care Quality Commission, and that's the best rating that you can receive. It's similar to an Ofsted rating, but for healthcare. So the team that this placement opportunity is in is the Information Services team, and this is just a little bit about Information Services. This slide is a little bit out of date, so some of the numbers have changed, but the structure has remained the same. So we have the bit in red there is the bit that I manage. So I'm the Deputy Analytics Manager and I manage the Analytics team and the Business Intelligence team. That includes an analyst in public health. And it also includes a number of information specialists, senior information analysts, and junior information analysts. We also have an information technician, and they support the work in the analytics team, but those all flex between the analytics team and the data and integration team, which I'll let Rob explain a little bit more about.
As I mentioned before, I'm the Deputy Data Integration Manager, so I help manage the right-hand side of this diagram. But just to give you a little bit of background to our organisation, we have a lot of systems in our trust. So we have our PAS system, which is our patient administration system, and that contains stuff about outpatient appointments, inpatients, A&E, different things like that. But we also have loads of different other systems, like our radiology system that's got our X-ray appointments in. We've also got a theatre system, which includes what happens to a patient when they come into theatre. Also endoscopy systems and the cancer waiting time systems to help track a cancer patient through their pathway. So we've that's just a few of the systems that we've got. So we have loads of different systems, and our job is to try to integrate the data from those systems. So that's what the data integration team kind of does. So within my team, we have a few different sections. So we have a data governance team, which encompasses data quality, data standards, and PAS management. But we've also got a data warehousing team that manages the flow of the data from all those different systems into our data warehouse, making it available to reporting of applications, and loads of other stuff. And we also get involved. We've also got an interfaces team as well. So our interfaces team, if you think of all the different systems that we have in the trust, what they do is they specify, design, and then test setting up interfaces between those. So rather than a user entering multiple data between different systems, the data just automatically feeds. So that just gives you a bit of an overview of what the data integration team does. Right, this next slide, so what we do. So if it's got anything to do with data, we get involved with it. So you might think, why have we got a picture of a house on this slide? But I think it's a good way of thinking about what happens within our team and the organization. You have to start off with a solid foundation for your data. You've got strong walls to support the house, and then you've got different floors within that house. So each of the floors support the floor above it. And then of course, you've got to make sure that data is being used correctly as well. So that's what all these things add up to, and that we've got a roof on top of our house. So it would be a pretty poor house if it didn't have a roof. So we want people to use that data correctly. So just to go into a little bit more detail about each of the different floors. So at the bottom, we've got the technical architecture. So and over the last few years, we've been moving from having data stored in each of our different hospitals and in servers to embracing cloud technology. And that's really good for us because it allows us to adopt new technologies, and it's really exciting. So the other advantages are that its cloud infrastructure is scalable, flexible, it's more secure, and it's supposed to be more cost effective as well. It's also got better security. Also, our IT department is quite involved with designing applications, different systems in the trust as well. So cloud just fits well with that. Onto the next floor, you've got your data and information governance, which also is within this team. So we look at data standards, so local and national data standards that help robust data integration. So for current systems, they must comply to national and local data standards and core requirements. So what I'm talking about there is like rules for how different fields in the data are recorded. So you might have a hospital site code in one system, and another field in another system for that. We want those same codes where possible to be the same. We want the key identifiers for the patients to be the same across all different systems. So yeah, that's for current systems. And then we often get new systems in the trust. So we're quite heavily involved with the procurement and then the build of those. We also get involved with setting up standard operating procedures and training of staff how to use systems. And to a certain extent, data access as well, making sure the right people have the right access to the data that we have. Moving on to the next floor, we've got data architecture, so data structures. We talk about data feeds into our data warehouse or between systems. Then we get onto data integration, joining up data from different systems. We've got, we do quite a bit of data transformation, mostly within SQL at the moment, of data in our data warehouse. So derivation of additional data items, creation of reporting metrics, just to get the data in the right format to help the sort of analytics side. We'll then move on to the next floor, which is about data management. This is really where data quality comes in. So when I talk about data quality, we talk about no duplicates within our data, that the data is consistent, same data standards across different things, the data is complete, and also that the data is entered in a timely manner as well. So there's not weeks and weeks between data being actually happened when it's getting recorded. Then we get into sort of the data integration, so joining up data from multiple systems to help with various different reporting types of stuff, and we'll come on to that in the next slide. Then also data flows as well. So we send data to lots of different organizations outside of the trust for activity reporting, and so that our trust can get paid for the activity that we do. And then another really important thing under the data management is sort of the metadata management. So details of what particular data items are, how and when they're collected and then shared. And now I'll pass across to Jenny, who'll do the top floors.
Will do, yes. So as previously mentioned, I manage the analytics team, and our job is all about getting information out there to our users, our clients, our stakeholders within the trust and outside of the trust. And we do this in a variety of different ways. So we do some data visualization and dashboards. We have used Tableau, but we are more focused on Power BI. We are getting involved in some machine learning projects and AI sort of projects as well, more so from a data point of view of providing the data that then people are using to create algorithms to predict things like when a patient, which patients are likely to get sicker quickly and need more intensive care. Or another thing, which I'll come on to again in the next slide, is trying to predict which patients might get a dislocation following a hip replacement procedure. So all of that really interesting stuff we get involved in. We have a number of self-service reports available to trust staff, and we are building on that all of the time. But we also send out operational reporting, so things like patients who've waited a long time who they need to see if they can prioritise for their procedure, or patients who are waiting for a first outpatient appointment and all that sort of thing. And this is sort of it's shown here as a top floor of the house. It's the bit that the insight is the bit that everybody wants. That's what everybody wants from our department, is to see reports, to see data. But actually it's about understanding that all of the stuff that Rob's already talked about is absolutely critical to us being able to provide good quality information that can be used for decision making. We also are we have skills and talent management there on the right as the little person. So this applies both within our team, but also supporting other users in the trust with skills in data and talent management. I recently gave a presentation to a number of clinical leads on how you use data and things like that. So this is analytical skills, how to use data, how to present data. So things like we would never ever use a 3D graph, for example, because they are misleading and they don't represent data very well. So skills in handling data, in data governance, making sure that data protection rules are adhered to. We do get involved in audit as well. We also would be involved in helping staff to understand how to use different systems, and we try and keep abreast of new technologies, new and developing technologies. So all of that sort of comes under skills and talent management, and that is both within our department and within the wider organisation as well. So just coming on to the next slide, this is just a list of some of the projects that we've been involved in. So the first one there was the design of the Northumbria Healthcare Specialist Emergency Hospital. So as I mentioned earlier, this hospital opened in June 2015, but it was, as you can imagine, it was years and years in the planning. And our head of department was hugely involved in modelling how that would look and which patients would go there and things like that. And that was very exciting. hip replacement dislocation rates, again, I mentioned earlier, this is something that uses machine learning to try and determine how likely a patient who has a hip replacement is to then find that that hip dislocates. And actually, as a direct result of the analysis that we did for this project, the trust changed the size of the, if you imagine the hip replacement, you've got a ball and socket joint, they changed the size of the femoral head that they were using in hip replacement procedures because they were finding that we did have a slightly higher dislocation rate. And it was our analysis that helped them to identify that. And that's the importance of being able to provide accurate, reliable, believable data that they really rely on, that we've got that right. Rob, do you want to talk about implementation of new systems?
Yeah, we quite often get involved in the implementation of new systems that come into the trust, and that's all about making sure that the systems are set up correctly with the right codes, that users are being trained correctly, and the right use of them, what data items that they need to record. And then we also get involved, as I mentioned before, with the interfaces between any new systems and existing systems, and also ultimately sort of the flow of that data into our data warehouse, making it available for our reporting.
We are currently working on a massive project, which is implementing a brand new maternity system. Patrick, have you been involved in some of the testing for that one, or is it a different system you've been testing?
Is this Badgernet one?
Badgernet, yeah.
Yeah, Badgernet.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on it. It hasn't really, as in anything I can be involved with yet. But I was just doing MedChart is what I was doing recently.
Yeah, so probably that Badgernet implementation is one of our biggest projects that we've got going on at the minute. In terms of machine learning, again, we've got a project going on, or a couple of projects going on, one of them around trauma and orthopedics, another one around predicting poorly patients, and that involves both Rob's team and my team because it's analytics, but also it's all about joining up that data and making sure that you can appropriately link data together. Rob, I'll let you talk about robots as well.
Yeah,
and Patrick.
So robots, whenever we say robot automation, people think about robots walking around the room, but it's not quite that exciting, but it's still very exciting. It's more about setting up a bit of software to replace a human doing interactions in a system or on the computer. So it's really about, it's about freeing up people to do other types of work and trying to automate some of these mundane routine tasks that people are doing. So Patrick's been involved with that as well. Do you want to mention anything?
Yeah, it's just it saves so much time, these kind of processes, and it's currently in a sort of testing phase. I mean, it had been started before I was here, but it kind of came to like the whole project as a whole has come to like a really interesting point now where I'm able to get involved with it a bit, and yeah, it's just kind of fun seeing how it evolves and the kind of processes you have to go through to get something like this into like regular use. So
the next one that we've got there on the list is live reporting in ED. Now, historically, all of our reporting was retrospective. Sometimes it was a month or two in arrears. It's not particularly, it's really helpful to see what has happened, but it didn't necessarily help our operational managers and things to understand what they need to change, and it would take a while to see the impact of any changes in the data. And over time, we moved that to more frequent reporting, and then we got to a point where we were actually now producing live reports from ED. And this is the next step would be to introduce sort of the machine learning and the AI to get to a point where we're doing predictive sort of future reporting where we can. But for now, we're at the live reporting in ED stage. And actually, Rob, you were very involved in setting that up, weren't you?
Yeah, we've started to use a lot more in the trust. We've started to use APIs and things like that to get our data from systems in real time. And it's been really valuable for these live ED reports to be shown in our emergency departments, keeping people and patients informed about waiting times and things like that and how busy it is.
Actually, we have reports that go off every sort of 15 minutes with the live status in ED, and that helps to direct ambulances around the region as well, you know. So if the ambulance service can see that we're really busy and we don't have much capacity and resource, for example, they might choose to take the patients to maybe the RVI or another hospital in the area rather than bring them to us. Likewise, the other trusts in the region also provide this reporting, so it might be that we get more ambulances at times when the RVI is more busy. So this is how valuable live reporting in ED can be and how much of a difference it can make to the general public. The last thing that we've got on there is COVID reporting, and you'll have all seen all sorts of facts and figures and statistics in the news over the past couple of years. Those figures largely come from our team, you know, for our trust. We probably spend roughly 10 hours of human time, analyst time per day, producing nationally mandated daily returns for COVID reporting. So that is a huge part of our role. And it was, you know, we had to adapt to that really, really quickly to understand the reporting requirements and to turn that around in very tight timescales. So it was, admittedly, a little bit stressful, but also, you know, it's something that we can look back on and be quite proud of, that the fact that we were able to adapt to that so quickly. So the next slide just has a definition of a good analyst. This is actually something we present to, as I mentioned earlier, clinical leaders and things on apprenticeship courses that they run through the trust. And the definition of a good analyst, we say, is not somebody who gives the manager exactly what they've asked for. It's somebody who asks enough questions to understand whether what the manager has asked for is actually what they need in order to answer the question. If it was just pressing a button, a lot of people do think it is just pressing a button and the data will come out, but it's not the case. You know, we really need to understand our data. So I'm actually going to hand over to Patrick now, and he's going to go through the last couple of slides that we have for you.
So that's it. There it is. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of explain. This slide is mainly about just kind of the general kind of experience I've had since I've been here, some of the things I've got to be involved with and stuff. So one like big part of it is, like from the diagram we saw earlier, the two different kind of parts of the department, the integration, the analytics team. Getting to work with both of them is really interesting because the work they do, although like being towards the same goal, is quite different. So you do get a really good range of experience. So beginning in analytics, it's more like you do a lot of like reporting, which basically you may start working on a report in the day and be finished like within the day or within a couple of days, and you really get to kind of have a look at the data. And I definitely learned a lot from that experience in terms of like what it all looks like and the kind of just what makes good reports as well and how to report well. And then you move into integration, which is like completely, a lot of the time, it feels like a lot of different work, and although the work is related, you definitely get a different experience in that other part of the department. Kind of tasks tend to go on for longer periods of time, more kind of projecty style stuff, and also it's just learning about those sort of foundations of the department, like we saw on that house diagram earlier, which is as opposed to the roof part, which is analytics. I mentioned about learning within analytics. One thing I really liked about this kind of experience was, although maybe the first week or so I did some like kind of standard training, most of it has been done on the job, and actually that is where I feel, and if you're applying to this, you'll probably feel the same way, that that kind of on the job learning is much more effective. And I've even had the opportunity to speak with like managers in the department about kind of the way, like what kind of learning I benefit best from. And yeah, having the opportunity to learn like that is really, really beneficial for me anyway. I mentioned about the project work. We spoke about the robot earlier. That's really exciting stuff that we've been doing. There's sorts of, I've found actually, as I've been here longer, you don't really feel like, although there is a regiment to the placement and like there is a sort of outline for how it's going to work. I've just found that like if you're just willing to like try hard enough and you're like willing to take on kind of whatever anyone offers you, you end up just involved in all sorts of different things, which is really exciting. Definitely keeps it interesting as well. So yeah, involved in all sorts of different projects. And it's probably a really exciting time to be joining the department because since I've been here, I've noticed like things tend to be picking up, and like the software and packages that are being used, we are looking forward looking towards moving on to other things. So in like the next few years, definitely there will be some big changes that if you are on placement here next year, you'll definitely see moving through. And yeah, the last one, the supportive working environment, of course, that especially to do with the learning thing. You definitely don't feel like you're just doing kind of non-crucial work. There's definitely some stuff you will get involved with, which is really important. And although that might sound like a lot of pressure being in this department and getting to know the colleagues and stuff, you really understand that like it's the perfect place to learn because you have the opportunity to get things wrong and there is someone who will be there to support you. So it's just, and everyone else understands that as well, that it is a learning experience pretty much first and foremost. So that's really something I've really found working here. You can move on to the next one now, which is more about kind of the things I'm going to come away with. So obviously looking forward to like careers in the future. That the benefit of doing this placement is that you get involved in so many different things, which answering those values-based questions that you get in interviews are so good. Having been here now for just over 6 months, so over halfway through, that's insane. I'm so much more prepared to jump into interviews and things like that just from the time here. Also those communication skills that you need in interviews and also in the workplace, you learn them here in a place where people are more, what's the word, how would you say it, an understanding, I suppose, that you are kind of new to what it's like to work in a workplace and people have the patience with you. So it's great to learn them and then come away feeling like you can speak to people within a workplace. Here as well, you not only speak to people within your department, but in the analytics team, like Jenny said, you're communicating with stakeholders outside and working on reports with them. So you learn how kind of hierarchies within the workplace work, and you get the opportunity to speak to other people rather than just the people you feel comfortable with, which definitely keeps you on your toes. Obviously, the kind of speaking to math students and math, stats and physics students, those kind of like computing skills are obviously really valuable for probably all your future careers. And here is definitely a place where I've got to learn it's probably where I'd say have got most of my programming learning from, or like the most beneficial learning from. In university, we deal with R, which is something the department's looking forward to implementing. But here I've learned how to write SQL queries, use another analytics software called SPSS, and just more kind of understanding how to write for purpose. It definitely feels like here you learn about there's certain standards that syntax is written in and things like that, and getting to kind of experience what it's like to write for these like reports that go straight into use is really interesting. Getting experience with Power BI, stuff like that is great for looking forward to future careers, and having experience in this in a place where I can just have the freedom to kind of mess about with it and have a play and just kind of learn for myself how it works is really, really valuable. Experience in handling healthcare data. Healthcare data, if you haven't gathered from this PowerPoint already, is so unique in the way it's used. So having the opportunity to deal with that definitely would set you apart from so many other people who maybe haven't had the opportunity to do so yet. And finally, confidence I've gained from being here is great. I definitely feel like I am capable of working in a workplace. When I started, I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't know if I was going to fit in. I didn't know if I was going to cope. But I mean, yeah, I'm halfway through at this point. I definitely feel I'm up for anything. I'd probably say, like, if any task from my way, I don't have the nerves anymore that I would have when I first started. So that's great. I definitely feel more better about myself and about like going forward in my career. So yeah, I'm at the bottom there is my university email, or you can follow me on LinkedIn if you want to ask me any questions outside of this, just about my experience further if you have any more. But there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Is that right? That is right. That is right. Yes.
Absolutely. So that's it from us. It's now time for any questions.
You so much. If I didn't already have a job, I think I'd come and work with you. It sounds great. It sounds like a lovely place to work.
It is. It's fabulous.
It really does. So if anyone in the audience has any questions, please do just shout out. But I'm going to make a start because I've been scribbling away, writing some notes as you were speaking. So Patrick, what kind of experience did you have, say, in the programming languages or the statistical software that you used that helped you sort of secure this placement?
So kind of on the standard, I'm speaking from maths, from the maths degree, but in any statistics, physics, anything like that, we had mainly used R, which is something that the department is looking forward to, which I think is was part of it. I mean, I definitely in the interview, Jenny and everyone else who interviewed me had the understanding of what I was talking about, which was great. But it definitely wasn't nowhere near to the level that I feel confident in writing now. And the kind of softwares that are used here, like SQL and SPSS, are I feel from what I've seen more widely used around, and we don't really have the opportunity to learn that at university. So getting the chance to get hands-on with that is really, really beneficial. But yeah, I just kind of think about where you have used programming in your degree. Think about group projects, things like that. They're the kind of the places where those skills of writing will transfer across to here.
Right, so you don't think there was a need for any, there shouldn't be any concerns about, I haven't used this programming language, or I've never heard of Power BI, or I've not used that. You don't think that would be a barrier to anyone applying to the role?
No, not at all. I'm sure Jenny can support me on this. Yeah. There's not any huge expectation to have like specific languages. I think it's more just the kind of understanding of how to write code and things like that, and the kind of general logic that goes with it, rather than specific languages themselves.
I think what we find is that a programming language, the ability to program, is a hugely transferable skill. Mm-hmm. So if you it's about those logical thinking and thinking about things in steps, and actually if you've got that skill, if you've learned any programming language, it doesn't necessarily matter which one it is, because those skills are hugely transferable to another programming language. It's just slightly different formatting of the syntax, different keywords and things like that. So it's more about the being able to think in logical steps. And that's why we ask for a programming language, because we find that it doesn't matter what the programming language is. If you've done a programming language, you'll be able to pick up the way that we program.
Great. And obviously this is based in healthcare, as we all know. Do you need any kind of background in health related data, or just health related matters more generally? Is that something that you would expect from a candidate?
I would say no. So I came to this department directly from university. I graduated in 2008. This was my first job straight out of university. I'd never worked in healthcare before. I think you need to have an understanding and respect of the fact that this is patient data that we're dealing with, and confidentiality. We do have quite a lot of access to a lot of data, and it's, we don't talk about it or gossip about it. We make sure we don't look up our friends and things like that. So obviously all of the pointers about data governance and data confidentiality are important to understand and respect those, but in terms of experience of healthcare data, it's absolutely not essential.
Patrick, did you have an interest in health specifically or anything like that?
I had no experience virtually at all, but definitely an interest, I think. But I came to this presentation a year ago, and this was probably what sparked the interest the most. I was interested in data, full stop, but healthcare just stands out, and especially now to me is such a unique kind of data world to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. I can see a question in the chat, so I'm just going to read that out. So how applicable would you say it would be, the skills that you've learned in maths and stats specifically being to your placement, Patrick?
Well, like Jenny said, definitely the kind of logical thinking that I brought here definitely benefited a lot when I first started, and having learned like one language was really useful in getting started again, kind of knowing how to go about the learning process of learning a language. But in terms of like general like soft skills, like actual skills with data and stuff, experience wise I hadn't had that much, and I don't think it was particularly looked for. It was just more the kind of desire to learn, the kind of that logical thinking, having that and kind of putting that across in the interview through describing experiences you've had in the past, and just kind of, obviously you need general math skills that you can imagine are expected. You're handling often numerical data, things like that. If you've had any experience in Excel, that's very valuable to come in with. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about I haven't dealt with data of this sort before or used this language before. Just kind of dwell on your experiences and think what would be valuable to put across in an interview.
Brilliant. That was a great answer. So yeah, just another question there in the chat, which I'm going to sort of expand on a little bit. So students asked about the interview process, but can you just talk to us a little bit more about the actual application process, and what your experience of it was, Patrick, and also what Jenny and Rob, what it is that you're looking for in the application stage, but then also in the interview stage as well?
Do you want to describe it first, Jenny, just in case anything's changed, and then I'll just say how it kind of felt for me?
Can do, yeah. So we use the same recruitment process for it's probably worth noting actually that Patrick is our first student placement that we've had. He's the first time that we've done it. But we use the same recruitment process for the students that we would use for information analysts. So the first stage is the application. And we are not actually allowed to shortlist you if it's not clear in your application that you meet the essential criteria for the post. So my advice in terms of when you're completing an application, don't write War and Peace. It doesn't need to be really, really long. You can imagine for some posts, not so much at the minute, but a few years ago, we would get over 100 applications for one of our information analyst posts. So we need to be able to quickly identify from your application that you have the essential criteria. So read through the person spec, make sure you're explaining to us how you meet our essential criteria and the desirable as well, ideally, if you do meet that. And that will allow us to shortlist you. What we did with the student placement the last time, which we can do if there are, depending on the number of applicants, what we would do normally is we use a test, which is an Excel and Word based test. as a sift. So we would usually use that to determine whoever passes the test then gets invited to interview. What we did the last time is actually the candidates came in and they did their interview, and then they went in and did the test straight after the interview. So they did both. And the interview, so the test itself is not something to worry about really. It assesses whether you've got the logic skills and the attention to detail and things like that that we're looking for. And then our interviews are values based. So the questions loosely relate to our trust values, which are patients first, safe and high quality care, everyone's contribution counts, responsibility and accountability, and respect. So those are our 5 core trust values. The questions, like I say, loosely aligned to those values, but because it's values based, it means it's all based on your past experiences. So we'll be asking you about things like, can you give me an example of a time when? And what we're looking for is for you to give a specific example, be sure to describe what you did in each of those situations. And it's often helpful to think about the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So that's a values-based interview. It's never, what would you do in this situation? It's always, can you give me an example of when you have been in this situation and how did you behave? What did you do? And usually what was the outcome?
Brilliant. So Patrick, do you want to tell us a bit about how you found the whole process from your side of things?
Yeah, so like Jenny said, very important to put on your initial application just the key criteria and how you meet them, things like that. So once you've got past that into the interview itself, yeah, I mean, all interviews are nerve-wracking, but yeah, in front of a panel, and just I'd emphasize again that those values-based questions are important. So it's really important to come with like your kind of bag of experiences that you can kind of pull out and use to answer those questions. Is Jenny, is this year going to be interview and test, or test first? Same again?
It probably will depend on how many applicants we get.
Okay.
The last time we had shortlisted 7, which is, we're absolutely fine to do both interview and test for 7 candidates. But if we got 20 shortlisted, for example, we would have to do the test first, because you would never interview 20 people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it all depends on how many applicants we get.
Yeah. So yeah, and just kind of look at those values and the trust. Like Jenny said, they're loosely related to the questions they're going to ask. But do just kind of have a think about those values and how you kind of feel about them, kind of maybe any times in your life where you've kind of loosely related to them, and kind of why they resonate with you and why you want to be here. Those are the kind of things you need to put across in your interview.
I think it's probably worth noting as well that some of the questions might throw you off a little bit. Sometimes they have a negative spin. So it might be like, we might be asking about a time you've made a mistake, or we might be asking about something that's gone wrong, and it can throw you off a little bit. But it's important to note that what we're looking for is actually how you learned from that, how you reacted to it. So not all of the questions will be, tell me about when you were really great. Some of them will be, or could be, tell me when things have gone a bit awry.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really really insightful. So how competitive do you envision this process being, and how many placements will you take?
So last year, I think we got roughly 20 applicants, and we shortlisted 7, and we had 1 position available, which was for Patrick. He got it. This year, obviously I can't say how many applicants we've got. We probably wouldn't look to interview many more than 7 or 8. That would be the most we would look to interview. And I think this year, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we're looking for 2 placement students this year.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
Brilliant. And will that be the same kind of role, sitting between the 2 sort of branches, if you like?
I think as we've said, Patrick's the first that we've had. This is the first time that we've had a placement student, and the way that we did it was Patrick spent the first was it 3 months or was it 4 months with the analytics team. Yeah, I think so. Up until December, he was with analytics team, and so the first month is largely training. Then he did 3 months with us, and that gave him a good grounding in the data. And then he's doing 3 months with Rob's team in data and integration. And then what we'll probably do towards the end of next month is have a meeting with Patrick and review actually what he might be interested in learning a bit more about, what areas of work he would like to experience. So he gets a bit of a foundation in both teams, but coming up soon, we'll be chatting to him about how he wants to spend the rest of his placement. And we would probably do something very similar with the students next year, but you would have one starts in data and integration and the other starts in analytics, and then they would swap after 3 or 4 months. But then again, we would have that conversation sort of like 2/3 of the way, halfway, 2/3 of the way through the placement to say, right, what do you want to do for the rest of your placement?
Brilliant. I think it's great when employers and the student work together to kind of decide on what path the placement takes, and I think it's much more beneficial for everybody that way around rather than a really prescribed structure. So that's great. Thank you for that. I'm just going to ask. I've just got a couple more things, then I promise we're finished. So one more thing, Patrick, just about thinking about your future career. Has this placement sort of informed the kind of work that you want to go into or that you don't want to go into?
No, definitely. Yeah, I mean, kind of being involved with it every day, you learn what you like and what you don't like. I definitely feel healthcare is a great place to work. That's just what I've come away from it, but you might find that's not the thing. But I'd just say take the opportunity and if you do get this placement, when you're here, just take on as many kind of opportunities that are thrown at you, because just everyone is so different, and you just kind of you feel out what you like, what you don't like, and it's just great looking forward and actually having the experience now. Before I came here, I had no clue what I wanted to do, and I'd had no experience in a kind of industry that I wanted to work in, and now it just feels great to even if it had turned out not as good and I didn't enjoy it as much, at least I could have looked back and said, at least I knew. So yeah. No, it's fabulous.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Just to round off, I'm going to just ask each of you your top tip for the application/interview process, the top tip for our students to stand out. So yeah, just Jenny and then Rob and then Patrick, that would be great.
Sure.
I think I would definitely say, in terms of the recruitment process, absolutely make sure that you are making it clear in your application how you meet our essential criteria, because it is so crucial. So it's just that's the thing that will get you into the next stage. So that would be my top tip. And actually, not just for our post, but for any post that you're ever applying for, you know, they should all have some sort of person specification, and you want to make it really easy for the recruiter to see quickly that you meet that person specification that they're looking for.
Well, Rob?
Yeah, I think my advice to people was, don't worry about the interview and the test. You're going to get something out of it anyway. You're going to get some experience of going through an interview and test environment. And then if you're lucky enough to get the placement, then all the better.
Patrick?
Yeah, definitely what Jenny said is obviously like the most important. You wouldn't want to fall at the first hurdle kind of thing. And just out of not making it clear enough. But other than that, I'd say being prepared with those kind of experiences from your past that you can pull on to answer these questions, because like do really have like a good think back. And you'll come across, when you look back, all sorts of different ones that maybe you didn't realize at first were a good example of this value or that value. But by taking the time to think about it, you'll definitely come up with some, even if you feel right now you don't have that many.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. That was really, really insightful. And I hope that's given people a lot of food for thought when it comes to the application process. What I would also just add, my top tip, if you like, for what it's worth, would be to use the careers service. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you with applications. We're here to help you with interviews. So if you are doing an application for this post, why not bring it across to the careers service and have a chat with one of our colleagues to make sure that you're hitting those requirements and to make sure that you're well prepared before you submit your application. And then again, when you get to your interview, which I'm sure you all will, when you get to your interview, you can then get some interview coaching from one of our careers consultants. We've got online resources for all of these kind of things as well. So just remember that you're paying your tuition fees. Get your money's worth, come to use the careers service for all of this, because that's what we're here for.
I used the career service when I applied for this. I sent them my application and did the interview stuff with them. So
brilliant.
If that's I'll be the advocate for it.
Excellent. I didn't even have to pay you to say it.
No, you didn't.
Brilliant. Well, honestly, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording just now.